there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to Collaboration Global's podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. And this is a second interview with the amazing Collaboration Global member, Mr. Gary Brown. Welcome, Gary. Lovely to have you back again.
Yeah, thanks, Jill, and so happy to be here.
What we love about the second interview or the second podcast conversation is the first one. If anyone wants to go back and find out about Gary, you find out about where he's from. You might notice that from the accent from good old South Africa, but also why he came over and the journey that he's had into being the businessman that he is. But he's recently taken his business and kind of brought it up to the 21st century from the point of view as he's pivoted into what many of us SMEs, small medium enterprises, are concerned with. And I, for one, am definitely concerned with sustainability and protecting the environment. But we often think like, well, I'm so small, what can I do? So we thought it would be great to have a conversation around what can we do as SMEs to make a difference. And do you know what? Why the hell should we bother? So I'm going to start with that question, really, Gary. If you're a one-man band, or maybe you employ 10, maybe 20 people, and you're dashing around trying to cover your back and make sure you've got enough money for your tax bill coming in, and make sure you're looking after your staff and your suppliers and your clients and everybody else. And now you've got to worry about your carbon footprint. I mean, why do we need to as SMEs?
To me, the biggest thing which worries me about it is my clients will ultimately there could be the large companies who legally have to actually complete various net zero and sustainability and SGE, and there's so many different acronyms which are out there which the larger companies have to include, and one of those is they have to cater and cover for all carbon emissions for everything they purchase. So if I am going in, if I'm supplying to a large customer, they could turn around and say, if I don't, as an SME, as a single man business, that I need to provide my carbon footprint to them because they have to incorporate it into their records, which is going to become ultimately into a public listed company they'll have in their reports. Or it could be something like the NHS, might work for the NHS, and they could require it. Yeah. So that is where it is. And where I say is we need to do it. It's going to happen to us as small businesses. And eventually it's going to be a case of, if you can't do it, you can't supply to us.
Yeah.
And it's already started.
Oh, gosh. So you can't put your head in the sand and go, I'm already working with the NHS. We've already gone through all of those things, and we just renew the contract and we carry on. Or another big organisation, say you work for the police or education or whatever. At some point, they're going to go, oh, we've just had to change our policies. We've had to update, and we've had to put this new thing in. And now we need to check that our people that supply us with A, B, or C are compliant to this new regulation. So for me, as a one-man band, as a business coach, I was like, well, what could I possibly do? I mean, now, fortunately for me, I have managed to look at this over the years because we are part of ORB, the Organisation for Responsible Business. And that's a completely voluntary thing, but they give you this checklist of things that you can do to look at your carbon footprint. So one of the good habits I've gotten into as a result of ORB is silly little things like deleting all my emails. So I have so many that you keep for record, and anything that I think might be a legal document or needed, it's all saved and it's all lovely. But the actual emails, whoosh, every year I get rid of the year before's emails, because if you don't, that is sitting somewhere in a data center, just holding on to it. And you might go, oh, well, I'll pay an extra 50p to get a larger uh, space, more gigabytes on my laptop or whatever, and it will just sit on my laptop and that'll be fine. But actually, it is constantly eating up the carbon, so as we want it stored. And if you know that you're never going to go back and look at that email that says have a nice day or whatever irrelevant thing it might say, that is an easy way of being on top of the case of getting rid of emails, as a pure example, a very small example, to be aware of your carbon footprint. Now, what I love about you, Gary, is that not only are you passionate about this for SMEs, one, because it makes the business more sustainable, great for the environment. We all know that. We've got to kind of be aware of that. And everyone goes, well, what can I do? I'll recycle. Yeah. And it feels like you don't have much impact. But if everybody starts doing it, and I know from your point of view, it does have a big impact and it will make a difference. But you're actually coming at this sustainability thing from a slightly different angle as well, because you're aware that if businesses don't start doing this, eventually, what can you see happening?
Eventually, what I can see happening is businesses are going to land up suddenly not having clients, because the clients are specifically saying, if you can't provide me this information, then I'm not going to hire you on. And your example you were using, saying with the NHS, I'm already providing to the company. What the NHS have actually come out, and I'm using them as an example because they obviously well known. The NHS have come out and written to all over 100,000 of their suppliers, stating that towards the end of 2026, all their suppliers are going to have to provide this information, or else they will not be allowed to renew whatever agreements they have. Yes. So we don't know what other businesses are doing. So that's using an example. So coming back to us as SMEs, small businesses, if we lose one large corporate as a client, or one large client, it could take us down totally. And trying to get back in again, if we don't have that, our whole strategy, our whole plan of how we are planning to reduce carbon and what is our deadline dates, what are we setting for ourselves, is going to be a loss of income. That's one thing. The other thing is as in new employees are coming into the market, as the younger generations are coming into the market, and finishing school, finishing university, and saying, well, we want to go into a business which actually does recognize the environment and what is happening within the business world. And you could find, well, I've got a lovely position, but nobody wants to take it on because you in actual fact are not converting to or looking to become sustainable, particularly with regards to the environment. Now, when I work with you mentioned with regards profit and financially and all that. So I work on the triple bottom line principle of taking into account people, profit, and planet. Now, the people part, that is, yes, looking at what is the whole, how you are serving the community, because people is not just people, employees, it's your whole community, every person you touch. Profit is everything which you're looking at, not only within your business, but if you go and make donations, you take your B1, G1, which you do, that comes under profit, because you are taking away from your income and donating it into there. So your profit is looking at everything in the environment in which touches. And then I look at the environment and say, right, let's look at all of that. Now, ultimately, we talk about sustainability. United Nations back in 2015 brought in the 17 sustainable goals. Sustainable development goals. If you apply all of that to the business, and you can apply all 17 to a business in various areas, just looking at the environment and reduction in carbon and looking at reducing carbon emissions. And carbon emissions is probably the wrong thing to say in one way, but it's something which people will always, it's spoken about in the press. But 6 of those 17 are applied just by going and saying, I'm reducing my carbon emissions. So you straight away as a business are doing that, and it's improving the environment. Who doesn't want the environment to be there? I was on a network call this morning, and we were chatting about what I miss from South Africa. And I said, I love going to the wild, to the game farms to see the animals in the wild.
Yeah.
I do not like going to a zoo
No.
because that's not in the environment. Now, quite correct. There could be some animals who are in a situation that they are almost becoming extinct. So the zoos are there to keep them, but it's us as humans who have caused that. So it's a case of we all think about the environment in different ways. And that's where it is think of the environment and you become a sustainable business within all three of those: profit, planet, and people.
So whether you have got altruistic altruistic ideas of I want to save the planet, or tiny little part of it, or whether you're just being mercenary and going, I need more clients, I don't want to lose my clients that I've currently got, there is no way around not looking at the carbon footprint of your business and not looking at how sustainable you could be. And I think no matter who you are and what you're doing, you can always improve somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you find is a typical thing that most businesses are not doing that they could do quite easily to save their carbon footprint a bit?
A simple thing: not turning off the electricity, all the electrical appliances within the business at night.
Yeah.
I'll use an example. I was, of let's just take a motor vehicle service department, and they have tire machines which are drawing a lot of power to be able to put that on, and they just don't turn off the power at night. So that's just trip feeding and using power at night.
Wow.
Because it's in a standby situation, but you're using
Yeah.
it. A simple thing: utilize, just reduce, because ultimately it's creating somewhere along in the stream, somewhere along the way, it's created carbon emissions. So simple things: turning off the light, turning off the computers, turning off the lights at night, making sure all other electrical appliances. That's simple thing. Changing to LED light bulbs. That's a simple thing to do. You don't need to go and replace them all in one go.
Just one at a
Buy a
time.
stock, and as they blow, as you get one
Yeah.
which blows, then replace it with an LED one, which has got a longer life. So it's not a case of having to spend a lot of money immediately, but do it over a time period as it happens.
And I think once you're aware of it and like, this is what this company does, this is how we are making a difference. Simple things like, rather than leaving your computer on standby, turning it off. And it doesn't make any odds. I always power down my computers completely. But quite often we forget to, we don't turn off the TV, do we? That's always on standby. Imagine if everybody in the country just chose for one night to turn everything off, maybe bar the freezer.
Yeah, exactly.
If everybody did that, I'm sure that would have a huge impact in what's available for us to access further down the line. And it's we've got so used to things going, oh, that's okay, that can stay. Who invented standby? I mean, why do we need to be on standby just in case? Just power it off and power it down completely. That's a really interesting thought. If people just get into good habits and being aware, it's like when you're at school and you start a new book for the term. I remember going into one lesson from one term to another term, and they gave us all their old books back, and they're like, oh, don't we get a new book? No, you carry on with the old one because there's a lot of pages left.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. And use both sides of your notebook, whatever you're writing on, use both. It's common sense that we kind of know that we're just being too lazy to not do, I think, half the time. And what's the most surprising thing that you've learned that people could do but they're not doing, or maybe that it's invisible to them, they don't see it? I mean, if you sit down and think, turning lights off, we could all do that. What's the most surprising thing that you think nobody's really thought of doing that is quite a simple thing to do?
The one thing I've picked up and I've seen, there's some businesses where if you think about it, you at home you're required to recycle all your waste. You've got various bins that you have to do, but I've come across a number of businesses where they say, why should we, the businesses wise, they don't bother about doing recycling there. And you say, well, and then and staff actually kick off against it and say, why should we do this? That means I've got to walk another 5 yards to go and get that recycle bin there.
Yeah.
So now what do you do at home? Why do you want to do it differently? So that's sort of some of the things where you've actually turned around and say, I was chatting, it took me, there's one of my clients who I work with, took me almost a year to convince the two owners. I work with them as a finance director part-time, which is one of the things. And I said, convince them all. It took them almost a year to say, why don't you do this?
Yeah.
And when I finally said to them, I said, your biggest client you have is only buying electrical vehicles. They're in the motor industry. You're only buying electrical vehicles from you. They're not buying the normal petrol and diesel ones. So what would happen if those 40 vehicles you sold them last year and you haven't gone and you've done this, and they come and say, well, you can't prove your carbon, so I'll go to your competitor and buy from them. Is that going to make any better? And it took that thought of saying losing a big client is going to have a big impact if I don't do something which will actually, it's pretty much common knowledge or common sense to do something like that.
Yeah. And I think we all know someone that's put all their eggs in one basket with that one client. And if that one client disappears, there is no business.
Exactly.
And it's like, would you truly want to start all over again and try and find another client like that if you hadn't been, just demonstrating that you are looking after your carbon footprint? So how do people show? Is it like a kite mark? Is it like a ISO they have to get? How are they going to demonstrate that they are looking after their carbon footprint?
Okay, I'm talking because I generally only work with SMEs, not with the big listed companies which have to publish these on their annual reports. So there is a website called the SME Carbon Hub, where you as a business can register and actually put your reports and your goals on that. So that and then you can cut mark that on your web page, on any pages or any correspondence which you have. That's the simplest. It costs nothing. You just got to be on there, but you've got to be able to provide everything and have a commitment for when you want to get to net zero. There are other ones which there are, but even just putting on your web page that you are targeting reduction in carbon and net zero and sustainability, just talking about it should be that. And what's happening now, a large number of companies are now requiring when they go out to tender, and it's not necessarily big public companies, it could be any company going out to tender, saying, what is your carbon emission, and having to answer a whole lot of questions. And if you can't answer those questions, it becomes there. So being able to turn around and say, oh, I'm on the SME Carbon website, there you are, here's my link, you can see what it is, will just give you that extra little bit of benefit.
And it shows that you've thought about it, and it shows that you've made a public declaration. You're putting it out there, and that you spent the time going through the sort of checklist for this. This is what I've considered, and this is what I've thought about, and this is what we're actually doing.
Exactly.
Going back to the Organisation for Responsible Business, I know they provide a certification as well. So you've got an external body looking at your business. If you want to go that far, which doesn't cost the earth, but it's somebody else that's checking it up on what you do so that you can then demonstrate. And it's a pointing place, isn't it? Somewhere to go. Go and check this register. This is where I'm registered. Or whether it's the Carbon Hub, whatever, you've got somewhere that you can show that big client or that next new client, I am serious about looking after the environment. And it isn't a soft thing to have. It's, as you say, not only is it valuable for your business, it's good for your conscience as well. It's like you're doing your bit. You're demonstrating that you're actually doing your bit to look after our environment in a way that, whether you believe in global warming or not, it's not wrong to recycle. It's not wrong to save energy. It's not a resource that we can carry on wasting. And it is something that the more we all come together and make a difference like that, the better our future is going to be. We're not going to have the rubbish heaps like we currently have. We're not going to have the changes in the weather. Maybe we don't know whether that's what's causing it, but at the same time, even if it isn't causing it, why would you want to waste electricity? We need to generate everything for everyone. So if we can get free energy and look after that energy, then we have more for the people that don't have anything at all.
Exactly.
which is a good place to be. So
And
having,
ultimately reducing your electricity usage, thinking of carbon. Not only that, it's reducing your cost. So you come straight into the profit side, you're reducing your costs.
yeah,
So they work together.
yeah, yeah. And who doesn't want to save some money? Well,
Yeah.
just by simple new habits. That's all you're
Yeah.
doing is you're getting into new habits. And also, you've ever seen these documentaries where they talk about the data centers that hold on to
Oh,
all your information? They're huge, and they're like, why? What? It's like factory farming, isn't it? It's like, why would anybody do that? It doesn't look natural, or doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to me anyway, personally. You
yeah.
might.
Yeah,
Anyone that
exactly.
wants to disagree with this podcast, they certainly can. Please put a little comment wherever you see this, and we'll come back and we will answer your thoughts and ideas. But for me, it's as my mother would say, it's common sense. And she was brought up during the war when it was make, do, amend, and everything was recycled. Everything was recycled to the nth degree because you never knew when you were going to get those things again. So you were grateful for everything that you had. And I still don't know why we don't have milk in glass bottles so we can just get them washed and out again. But anyway, I'll stop there. Gary, you are you are so passionate about this subject, not least for the environment, but more so for the business owners,
Yeah.
because you've seen them go under and you've seen them struggle and you've seen them lose big clients, which has a massive impact. Because this is what is now demanded by our government, by the policies that they put in place. So, how do you teach people? I mean, I understand that you've now got a Profit with Purpose Sustainability Workshop, which is a lovely bit of alliteration. Profit with Purpose. Tell us a little bit about that. What do people need to know about those workshops?
The workshop is effectively me explaining the principles of the people, profit, and planet,
Mm,
and then this going through the sustainability, the United Nations sustainability, and actually explaining what sustainability really means. And
mm,
there's a definition which I'm going to need to read to make sure it's verbatim from what is provided. And that is where sustainability means responsibly meeting the needs of present generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
wow.
And that was written by the United Nations in 1987. So that's where it's defined and it's come through with there. So I go through the whole principles of what is sustainability and the 17 factors of that. And then to say, right, let's concentrate for the workshop just on carbon, because that's one of the things. Now, the carbon reduction covers 6 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And that is where it's saying, well, if we want to bring those 17 in to our business, why don't we just take one aspect
Mm,
which covers 6 of them,
yeah.
so that you can actually reduce it? And then I go through and explain, sort of show as examples, what is how much taking a whole lot of different items and saying, rank them from which is the highest carbon emitter to the lowest carbon emitter. So it could be a flight from London to Glasgow versus, and taking it not necessarily for business, but turning around and saying how much carbon is emitted by creating a vegan burger. And you just say, so you're moving
Yeah.
across the whole thing, covering all different areas of both business and personal, because we
Mm,
all have to eat, we all have to drink, and that's the type of thing.
mm,
Then saying, right, how are we going to apply these into the 3 different scopes that there are within measurement of carbon equivalent?
mhm,
Because we all talk about carbon, but it's actually all the greenhouse gases are included in that, and it's just measured against carbon. And it's called a CO2 equivalent. So you convert them there, and then saying, right, we've got our 3 different methods, whether it's a scope one, and scope one is as simply is the everything we burn as a business, like gas and fuel. Electricity is scope 2, and everything else we buy is scope 3.
mm,
And it goes through all of that, and just then saying, how does that work? And then we work through that and explain and give examples, and then saying, right, okay, now you as a business to want to reduce your carbon, which will most of the time have a savings in costs, sometimes will have increased costs, However, it'll ultimately you're then weighing up the pros and the environment versus your costs, and say, right, what are some examples? So examples are LED lights, light bulbs, which you don't need to, you don't need to buy everything up front, and you just do it as it replaces. As I mentioned earlier, and we can, and anything else on that principle which you can work on, and we go through that. And ultimately, it's just over a 2-hour workshop, and to me, it's opening people's eyes as to what it is. I'm not going to go through the complexity of how you calculate the carbon for each of that in the workshop, because then it's too detailed, and it's more the high level awareness that I'm bringing into the workshop. But there's things you can take away and immediately implement in your business.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? And not only are you immediately implementing, you're probably immediately saving stuff as well.
Yeah.
So it's like a win-win all round, isn't it? One way or the other. It's a win for the environment, a win for your business and your pocket as well. Yeah. So I understand you told me earlier that you play games on this workshop. That doesn't sound very productive. I mean, what are you doing? Playing poker or something? How does it work?
The playing games is having different cards, which I have, which are of the different types, as I was saying, with regards CO2 of a flight, and there's a card, and within that, so we take the cards and put them on a table and say, right, now put them in what you think is the order. And on the back of the cards is then an exact explanation of how they've done the calculation to get to that CO2, not the mathematical, but a narrative to explain why it's that. So an example would be, and sorry for any of the vegans or vegetarians who are listening to this, but a 1 kilogram beef steak is equivalent of 99 kilograms of carbon equivalent to create a 1 kilogram beef steak.
Wow.
And that is because they're taking it from when the calf is born, and its development and the food it eats and all of that, right up until it is in actual fact provided through to you on your plate. And that. So it's surprising things like that. So it's working with cards with that. So it's not just sitting behind a desk and at a chair and me doing a PowerPoint presentation and saying, that's what it is, because you see the glazed eyes when that happens.
But also what I love about it is that by using those cards, it is going to be revelatory, isn't it? So people go, I didn't know that. Did you know that? And I do remember watching a TV program ages ago where celebrities would go into a restaurant and they chose from the menu according to what they thought would be the least carbon footprint that they would have. And then after they'd had their meal, it was revealed what was the most. And there were things like an avocado, and they're like, oh yeah, well, that's a healthy food, so and that's not meat, so that must be good. And actually avocado had a higher carbon footprint than some of the steak that had come from just up the road. So you have to kind of make wise choices along the way, but you can't make wise choices until you are informed.
Exactly.
Once you have that kind of information, it puts a different slight on it. It's like, just because you jump on an aeroplane and you plant 3 trees doesn't mean to say your carbon footprint's been taken care of. There's, as you say, calculations that need to be done and understood as to how it works. So these workshops are face-to-face, are they currently?
Currently they're face-to-face, but I'm planning on having them online as well. Right. It's a case I want to become more confident in designing what the structure is, because it's quite difficult to work with cards online versus the cards on a table, and that's the part which I've got to get onto, how I'm going to be doing that online.
Yeah, because obviously once you're online, then more and more people are going to be able to access it. But in the meantime, if they do want to jump in a car, hopefully car share, and come to your face-to-face events, they're over in Hemel Hempstead, is that right?
Yes, they're in Hemel Hempstead at the snow centre. So if they want, they can then jump onto their skis afterwards and have some time with skiing there. And the snow centre have just invested an incredible amount on solar panels to reduce their requirements. So they're becoming more carbon neutral on that basis.
Yeah. And this is the thing, if you're a small business and you're thinking, oh, if I'm going to be sustainable and do all these wonderful things, it's going to cost me an absolute fortune. it doesn't have to, does
No,
it? I mean, if you want to go wild and get solar panels on the office roof and put a wind farm out the back, then yes, it's going to cost you an awful
yeah,
lot of money. But you can start small and just
exactly.
show that you are willing to take some of those steps and that you have thought about it and that you are practicing uh, some small part along the way. And as time goes on and things do become more accessible, then you can do more things. But ultimately, even if you're being mercenary about it, it is to make sure you look after your current clients. They will be happy that you're being sustainable. And any new clients that might come along that have a requirement that you have to fulfill before they can take you on, you'll be able to go, yeah, there you go, there's my certificate, or there's my declaration, or there's my commitment, and it will demonstrate you've already done that. So
Yeah,
you will be 5 steps ahead of the other guy that's gone, don't need to do that, do I?
exactly.
So it's well worth coming along. And if for no other reason, find out at home as well how
Yeah,
you can cut your carbon footprint, but save money too. I mean, why would you leave all the lights on in your house
yeah,
unless you've got
exactly.
teenagers who just keep you having to yell at to get
Yeah.
change? Um, One thing that I think is a question people talk about a lot is this net zero.
Yes.
Why is net zero so important, and how the hell are they measuring and managing that?
Okay, so it all comes back from the Paris Agreement in 2015 during the COP, which took place in 2015, where all the nations signed up to the fact that they didn't want that the average global temperature should not be increased by 1.5 degrees, because that will then become quite bad for the whole the
Mm,
world. And they signed it up there, and it was they had to reduce their carbon emissions based on a specific year. Now, in the UK, that was in 1990 was the year that it was calculated of the total carbon emissions of the UK in 1990.
yeah,
And by 2050, they have to reduce that to net zero, i.e.,
right.
10, and net zero is effectively 10% of what 1990's carbon emissions were. And then they can do offsetting of the remaining 10%. And the offsetting would be planting trees and other ways of reducing carbon, which is a lot of the offsetting which happens.
Mm,
So if a country, and there's 100 and I know there's definitely 150 countries, bearing in mind Europe is regarded as one country,
okay.
um, which has signed up to achieve this net zero. Now, and it all signed the Paris Agreement. Then there's one country which has withdrawn from the Paris, which we know is on the other side of the Atlantic from us.
Mm,
And so and that's it. But if the country's done it, all of us as individuals, right down to individuals, are going to need to do things to reduce the carbon emissions.
mm,
And so and it's a legal commitment which was actually signed in 2008. I think it was in the UK government, that they will achieve that the year might not be right, but ultimately 2050 is the year where it has to be
mm,
completed by.
mm.
And it had to be down by 50% for the year 2030. Now that's only 5 years' time. And the But if any companies, large businesses, or anybody who says they're going to follow this, either legally required or us as SMEs say we're going to be doing it,
Mm,
we have to be 50% by 2030. Now, the longer it takes to get there, to start, the longer the
yeah.
more difficult it will become to achieve a 50% decrease by 2030. So I think what will happen is as long as the ultimate deadline of 2050 is achieved, um, that doesn't take into consideration, yes, if you're in a business and you go and purchase a new business or build a new factory or something, it's a new thing. So you would need to then take that into account separately. But ultimately, it's reduce the amount of carbon going into the air,
Mm,
from what it was at whatever your base year is.
yeah. Yeah.
And as an example, carbon, CO2 remains in the air for 200 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
So
that. Yeah. Sheesh. Yeah, I know there are experiments now, aren't there, to uh, machines, is that the right word? To uh,
Extract.
yeah, to use up the carbon
Yeah.
or to convert it. But
Yeah.
it's such a small amount, and the
Yeah.
machine is so massive that it's like it's not viable to do that long term. But
Exactly.
it doesn't take long for all of that. Probably 5 years down the line, it will be much more viable.
Yeah.
So if somebody is now sitting there thinking, I had never ever considered my carbon footprint and whether my business is sustainable because I've got three rather large clients who probably would be asking me if I was to apply now to work with them. If I was to put a tender in, they probably would be asking me for my credentials on sustainability. I'm a bit worried now. What's the best thing for them to do? If they can't come to your work, first of all, if they want to come to the workshop, that's the easiest thing to do. How do they find out about it? How can they find the link to get onto your workshop?
I haven't got any advertised at the moment, but I'm going to. There will be, but I'll market it both on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
on Eventbrite, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So I will have put all of those links on there, and then locally, because it's a local one, in the various chambers of commerce websites, so that it's on those as well.
That's brilliant. That's cool.
Um,
So when you've got those links, you can let us have those, and we'll
I
put
will
those
pass
in
them
the
on to you.
podcast, and we can let you have those as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, connect up with Gary on LinkedIn. Go and find him.
Yeah.
Gary Brown is not the most uncommon name in the world.
Yeah.
So, is there a way? Again, we can put your link in the thing so they can come and find the right Gary Brown on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
find out about it. And if people are too far away, maybe they're in another country and they're considering what they might have to do for their business, it's best to contact you and you can have a chat with them over the phone.
Yes.
And
Yeah, definitely over the phone. Drop an email and have a Zoom call, which makes it could be possibly easier. Zoom or Teams or one of those.
Yeah. So
Calls, yeah.
what's the best email to get you on, Gary?
It would be gary.brown@businessdoctors.co.uk.
Lovely. Okay, well, thank you for that insight. There is so much for us all now to ponder. And I bet everybody that's listened to this podcast will disappear off home at the end of the day and make sure that light's turned off and make sure their laptop or their computer is really powered down so it's totally off. It's starting in small ways, isn't it? And just
That's all it is.
good habits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating. And we look forward to another episode. And hopefully, you'll have good stories of people that have started and made huge inroads into their sustainability for their business as well.
It's a pleasure, Jill, and thank you very much. I really have enjoyed it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Gary. Speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon.